You're watching Aurora 8, proud to be serving Aurora, Colorado, and all America City.
Good evening and welcome to the 2013 Candidates Forum featuring candidates for the Aurora City Council. I'm Kevin Hogan, the president of the Aurora Chamber of Commerce. Our organization, along with the Aurora Business Women, the Aurora Sentinel, the League of Women Voters, and the Aurora Election Commission, are pleased to sponsor tonight's forum. There are many critical issues facing our community, and we believe that these forums present the perfect opportunity for voters to see the candidates and hear the different perspectives on these issues. We hope that by helping to inform voters, they can make the best choices in selecting the men and women to sit on the Aurora City Council. The decisions they make will affect our community for years to come. Now I'd like to turn this forum over to the evening's moderator from the Aurora Business Women, Karen Hart. Karen?
Thank you, Kevin. This forum is one of 4 that we're sponsoring this election season. They all focus on candidates running for Aurora City Council, but this session will feature candidates running for the 2 at-large seats. The format for this evening's forum will include questions that I will ask on behalf of the sponsors, as well as questions from the news team at the Aurora Sentinel. Aaron Cole is their managing editor, and Dave Perry is their editor. Now it's time to meet the candidates. There are 6 candidates running for 2 at-large seats. Barb Cleland was elected as an at-large council member in 2009 and previously served on Aurora City Council between 1983 and 2003. She has been the Community Relations, Legislative, and Compliance Director for the Aurora Mental Health Center since 1995. She chairs the Aurora Housing Authority and serves as a victim services advocate for the Aurora Police Department. Barb is the past chairwoman of the Colorado Municipal League and has lived in Aurora since 1969. Matt Cook is a lifelong resident of Aurora. He has served as a member of the Aurora Public Schools Board of Education for the past 8 years, including 5 years as president. Matt is also the president of the Colorado Association of School Boards. He has been a member of several volunteer organizations, including the Aurora Citizens Budget Advisory Committee. In 2010, Matt was named Man of the Year by the Aurora Chamber of Commerce. P.K. Kaiser has lived in Aurora for 10 years and emigrated from Pakistan. He is an accounting technician for the Community College of Aurora. In 2011, P.K. ran for Aurora City Council in Ward 6, currently served by Councilman Bob Broom. He is a husband and father of 3 children. P.K. studied agricultural economics and business administration in college. Angela Lawson has lived in Southeast Aurora for 12 years. She has a bachelor's degree in political science from the University of California at Berkeley, a master's degree in public administration and social science from the University of Colorado at Denver, and a master's degree in public policy from Georgetown University. Angela has worked at the Colorado Secretary of State's office since 2005. This is her first run for office. Brad Pierce has been an at-large Aurora City Council member for nearly 10 years. He is running for a 3rd term. Brad moved to Aurora in 1978, where he met his wife, Margie Cannon, a neighborhood liaison for the city. He owns a law firm that specializes in paralegal services for elderly clients. He is a member of the Aurora Economic Development Council, the Visit Aurora Board of Directors, the National League of Cities, and is president of the Community College of Aurora Foundation. Maya Wheeler was born in Texas, raised in Boulder with her brother and single mother, and has lived in Aurora for 18 years. She works with families in need and helps them navigate the healthcare system. Maya holds a master's degree in health administration, business, and information management from Webster University. She worked for Union Pacific Railroad for 4 years and was a member of the Transportation Communications Union. Those are the 6 at-large candidates. Before we begin with opening statements, I'd like to let our candidates know how the questions will proceed. I will be asking questions of all the candidates on behalf of the sponsors, and candidates will each have 1 minute to respond. Pairs of candidates will also receive questions from the Aurora Sentinel. Again, they will have 1 minute to respond, and they will also be allowed a 30-second rebuttal. Please pay close attention to our timekeeper. She will be timing the opening and closing statements, answers, and rebuttals. The timekeeper will signal when there are 30 seconds remaining, 15 seconds remaining, and when time is up. We will now begin with opening statements from the candidates, starting with Barb Cleland.
Thank you very much. My name is Barb Cleland, and I'm running for Aurora City Council member at large. I'm a third-generation Coloradoan. I have 4 kids. All have attended Aurora schools, as currently 2 of my 3 grandchildren are doing. I have served on various boards and commissions throughout the city for the last 24 years. I have 3 priorities in the city: bringing economic development and jobs to the city. I have been a leader in bringing jobs, economic opportunities to Aurora. I'm working to reduce red tape, keep taxes low, and improve city infrastructure. Spending taxpayer money wisely. I am working every day to keep city spending under control, balance the budget, and ensure our local government delivers essential city services. And third, keeping our families safe. I will continue to make sure law enforcement and firefighting are the top priorities in the city of Aurora. I know nothing is more essential at the quality of life than keeping our city's streets safe.
Matt Cook.
Good evening. My name is Matt Cook, and for the past 8 years, it's been my privilege to serve on the Aurora Public Schools Board of Education. When I began my work on the board, my fellow board members and former Superintendent John Berry, we led a complete transformation of the school district. We reduced truancy, increased graduation rates, and Aurora Public Schools high school seniors earned more college credit than any other district in the state last year. In addition to my work on the APS board, I've been privileged to lead locally elected board members as president of the Colorado Association of School Boards. As a Colorado native and a lifelong resident of Aurora, I've seen a lot of changes in my hometown. Aurora is a great place to have grown up, and when my wife Lori and I were looking for a place to raise our own family, we chose to stay here. However, our city is facing some very important issues, including jobs, inadequate recreational and cultural arts facilities for all, growth, development, and continued support for our police, fire, and emergency medical response. I have a proven track record of being able to address these tough issues and come up with solutions that work best. Thank you.
P.K. Kaiser.
Good evening, and thank you. I am P.K. Kaiser. I have lived in Aurora with my wife and my children for past 10 years. I work at Community College of Aurora, and I'm a small business owner as well. I refer to myself as the people's candidate, as I have created a grassroots campaign of everyday people. People who are concerned about the environment, people who feel that Aurora City Council should engage effectively and openly with the citizens, people who believe they should be heard, people who believe City Council needs fresh, new ideas. I am the people's candidate. Thank you.
Angela Lawson.
Good evening. My name is Angela Lawson. I'm running for City Council because Aurora is an extraordinary city. When I moved here about 12 years ago, Aurora gave me viable options to be a young homeowner, something that I wouldn't have been able to do if I lived in some of our surrounding communities. I would like city government to increase its focus on serving the real needs of and interests of the people and businesses that live here, and also preserve and enhance some of our positive assets. I think that we should have more of a voice in the city, and I would like to be that voice. Thank you.
Brad Pierce.
Thank you. My name is Brad Pierce. I'm a member of the Aurora City Council. As a council member at large, I've been privileged to serve the businesses and the residents of Aurora for the past 10 years. And again, thank you for the invitation to hold the candidate forum. It's always a pleasure to be here. I really like my job on City Council. It's trying at times, but then you get rewards at it as well. I bring experience to the slate of candidates here. I've been on City Council when the Prairie Waters Project was developed and constructed, the Fitzsimmons redevelopment project, and the other economic development projects that we've seen over the past 10 years. I have a lifelong, deep-seated commitment to the city of Aurora, and I want to make it an even better city. We have a bustling city with a great economy and vibrant neighborhoods. We also have a great military heritage that I think we should continue to embrace. Lived in Aurora for about 25 years now. I'm a former neighborhood association president. I'm a small business owner and a member of the Chamber of Commerce. I've also been walking neighborhoods all over the city, and I also wanted to give you my website, bradforcouncil.com. Thank you.
Maya Wheeler?
Good evening. My name is Maya Wheeler, and I'm a candidate for Aurora City Council. While providing opportunities for our most vulnerable citizens, I saw a great need for stronger leadership in Aurora. I saw a need for someone who would stand up for the people and represent all of Aurora residents. I saw a need for community-based focused leadership that would lead Aurora to a brighter future. That's why I'm running for Aurora City Council. I'm running because I understand the need for real economic opportunities. I understand the need to protect our current assets as well as attract other industries that promote job growth. I'm running because I want to provide a city that helps families, protects seniors, and invests in our youth. I'm running to attract jobs, help small businesses, and advance development. I will make constituent services my #1 priority. If you call me, I will call you back. If you have a question, call me. Vote Maya Wheeler, vote the bottom line. I will be there for you.
Thank you. My first question goes to all the candidates. What is your position on the use of economic incentives in order to compete with other cities to attract businesses to our community? Maya Wheeler will answer first.
I think economic incentives are a good thing. One of the things I would like to do is improve the quality of life for Aurora residents. And one way of doing that is through economic development. I see that as a good idea as long as we put restrictions in place. I think we have to ask developers and businesses for something for our residents. We just can't give them things without expecting things back. When we give incentives, we need to expect good paying jobs for our citizens. And so, like I said, I think that's a good idea as long as they do what they're supposed to do. If they do not do what they're supposed to do, they should have to give the money back to the city.
Brad Pierce?
Thank you. I think that we're not only competing with companies to come to Aurora around this area, we're also competing across the country. So if a company is looking at coming to Aurora and they're in another state, we're also competing with other cities trying to get their company to move here. I do support incentives. I think that but for the incentive, they wouldn't come here. In other words, if we didn't offer the incentive, then they wouldn't build, therefore we would get no jobs. So I think it's done in a judicious way. We don't always offer incentives on every project. There are many jobs that are come here without incentives. We also have to remember that the incentives are paid for out of the revenue generated by the project. We don't have a bag of money sitting in the closet we hand a developer. We have to remember that we pay the incentives to the developer based on their revenue, so I do support them.
Angela Lawson?
I support tax incentives because I think they're a major tool in bringing jobs to the city. However, when incentives are sought, there needs to be an objective, comprehensive assessment to determine if the tax recovered over time after incentives are, and the increase in jobs if we lose revenue. They may weigh against the current infrastructure, and I also think this process should be a win-win for new businesses and the taxpayers without penalizing any existing businesses. So I would support tax incentives.
P.K. Kaiser?
Thank you, Karen. Being a student of economics, I think incentives are catalyst for business and industry, and as an economy as a whole. I see incentives as a catalyst for the business and the industry, but my take is there should be a mechanism to award incentive for the existing businesses there should be performance-based incentives. For the new businesses, there should be based on the number of jobs they are creating and the bottom line of revenue they are generating at the end of day. I'm not giving incentive based on personal liking or disliking or putting everything into one plate and let the starve other business in the city. It should be performed in a mechanical way, and it should be out of personal liking and disliking. Thank you.
Matt Cook?
I think the city can't afford to not use any tool available to it. However, they have to be used correctly. I think there needs to be transparency, and I think people need to understand that there is one pot of tax money. It's not like cities like Aurora or Denver or even the state. There's only so many taxpayers paying into that, so there has to be a return. But really the transparency piece, I believe council has to do a much better job of explaining what goes into an incentive, how the entire economic development policy works, and how jobs are created. Because there is a lot of confusion about this in particular, because people see a developer getting 15 or 20 or $30 million, whatever it might be. So I think there's a lot more communication that needs to happen, some more transparency, and a better explanation of the process.
Barb Cleland?
I would not make a statement that I would absolutely support tax incentives. I have to look at each project to see what it does and what the jobs and the types of jobs that it's going to bring to the city and the long-term effects that particular development may have for the city. Doing an analysis is how I look anytime that I decide to vote for a tax incentive for the city. When we do tax incentives, it is taxes that the actual development pays into the city from the county and or the school districts. So it's not the citizens that are actually paying the taxes. It is the business itself that is paying for the taxes or paying for the incentive.
Thank you. The next questions will come from the Aurora Sentinel. They will be addressed to specific pairs of candidates, and you will have 1 minute to respond and 30 seconds to follow up on rebuttal. We'll begin our media questions with Aurora Sentinel editor Dave Perry.
Thanks. Since everyone supports financial incentives, we won't be arguing that point at all tonight. My first question is for Angela and Brad, and I wondered, as far as incentives go or economic development, how each of you feel about medical marijuana retail establishments, whether or not you would support those in the city, and if not, why not? And if you do, if there's any specific restrictions that you're thinking about at this time. Brad, do you want to start?
Yeah, thanks. Retail marijuana, I think not only did the statewide voters approve it, the city of Aurora voters approved it as well. So I think it needs to be regulated. The retail marijuana stores need to be kept a certain distance, maybe 1,000 feet away from schools, hospitals, daycare centers. And I think that we can also regulate or put a cap on the number of actual stores that we have in Aurora. What that cap may be, I'm not sure, but we should not be like Denver and have more marijuana stores than Starbucks under their medical marijuana scenario. So, and then we also have to remember that we can regulate cultivation, manufacturing, and testing of these products as well.
Okay, thanks. Angela?
The voters have spoke, and they want to regulate marijuana in the city. But there's a lot of unknown issues with this. And because Aurora doesn't actually have any marijuana dispensaries, I think the idea of selling recreational marijuana does present some challenges. I'm not opposed to it, but I think what it would be good to do is to maybe get some medical marijuana shops, maybe have a certain amount allocated to the city to see how they work, because they can sell both medical marijuana and recreational marijuana. And from that, we can maybe do gradual steps to see what we want to do in terms of doing the pot shops or the recreational marijuana shops. I think that, so we can maybe develop and learn from the City of Denver how they're doing and expanding enforcement policies, practices, and specific needs for our city.
Okay, one of the most compelling arguments against Amendment 64 was the increased use of marijuana by teenagers, and especially minors. And I was wondering if you think that the city has a role in trying to prevent the retail marijuana shops and the marijuana sold from making its way down to kids. Angela, you want to address that one?
I do think that we do need to educate kids. I don't agree with, marijuana smoking amongst kids. However, I think we have to do some kind of educational, we have to maybe have you're 21 or you're 8, a certain age limit in order for that to maybe decrease some of the marijuana usage amongst young kids.
So increased police inspections of these shops or at schools, or?
I think so. I mean, I think it would be good to increase the inspections at the shops. I think it would be good to have some education at the school levels as well. You can't deter it all the way, but at least having some of those practices in place would be important.
Okay, Brad?
Thanks. One of the main principles of that, since Amendment 64 passed, one of the main principles in that is to keep it away from children. And so what I want to see at the state level is to have child-proof packaging at a retail marijuana store, for example. So it's just like a prescription bottle, it's hard to open. And so I think when the state regulators come around and figure out, okay, are we going to have child-proof containers or not at the store, I think that's definitely what should happen at the store. And then I do think there's going to be a certain amount of expenses incurred by our police department for enforcing and checking up on these stores.
Okay, thanks.
And now a question for Managing Editor Aaron Cole.
Thanks. I have a question for Barb and Maya, and this is along the lines, I guess, with economic incentives, continuing the theme. But I'd like to ask specifically about the Gaylord project and the pushback that the city has gotten from downtown Denver hotels and other folks. Does the city have a role to play in protecting what I guess you could consider an investment, if it is, considering that they have offered a sizable lump as far as tax incentives for the Gaylord project? And what's the future as far as the city's role in bringing that project to fruition? Barb, do you want to go ahead and start?
Sure. Thank you. I believe Rita, who is the developer of Gaylord, does have a role to play in it. The city does too. But it's Aurora Economic Development Council that went down to the RTA, the Regional Taxing Authority, to get the tax incentives from the state of Colorado. I personally think what you are seeing with some of the downtown Denver hotels is they are very envious and jealous of the city of Aurora because we've been able to pull off having an absolutely wonderful hotel, 1,500 rooms, that is going to create jobs and economic development in the city of Aurora. But it's also going to bring over $1 billion of economic development in the state of Colorado, economics, tax base in the state of Colorado. So what I think you're seeing is pure greed and pure envy from Denver.
What?
Yes, I agree. The city has a part to play. I think we need to work with the Office of Economic Development and the developer to make sure that this project comes through. This project, like Barb said, will bring lots of jobs to Aurora, which is very important to our residents. It'll help our quality of life. It'll also attract tourism to the state of Colorado as well to Colorado. So I do support it and think the city needs to do what we have to do to make sure it comes through. It's something that's good for our residents.
I do have a follow-up, and I just want to make sure that I'm clear. When you say that the city has a role to play, as well as the AEDC and the developer, are you saying the city should maybe take a back seat or take a front seat? Because even though it is an AEDC and there is a developer, the city has a serious interest in making sure that the project comes to fruition for its residents. So I'm trying to figure out what role the city does have to play.
We have played a role with this. The mayor and many of our city attorneys have been down in testifying with the RTA. So we are trying to be as visible as we possibly can. And we do have, but it depends on how much, we're not sure what is going to happen in the future, but we have been very visible.
And Maya, if elected, what would you do?
Well, like I said before, I think it's very important to the city, and we need to work together collaboratively to make sure this project comes to fruition. I'm not currently on city council, so I'm not privy to all the information to know exactly how the city has been, what their role is, but I do think we need to take an active role. This is important to our city, it's important to our residents, and it has the potential to improve the quality of life. Like I said, one of the things I really care about is bringing good paying jobs to the city of Aurora so that our residents can pay their mortgages, they can pay their bills and take care of their kids. And I see this as an opportunity for our residents. So I would like for the city to step up and do what we need to do to make this project happen.
The next question comes from Dave Perry.
My next question is for Matt and PK. Currently, the city's having a discussion about what to do with a windfall of close to $30 million. The police and fire department has come forward and asked for about $26 million of that possibly for a police fire training center. And I was wondering if you think that that's the city's biggest capital investment priority right now, or whether other items should be considered at the same time, recreation centers, reopening libraries, and some of the other capital investments that residents regularly make. Matt, you want to start with that?
Sure. I think anytime you're speaking about that amount of money, the decisions have to be carefully made. Clearly, we need to support public safety. However, I don't think spending all of it on that is the best way to go. I personally would like to see some plans around cultural arts, recreation centers, some of those other things. I think perhaps the argument is a bit of a straw man as well, because there's other funding mechanisms available. Aurora Public Schools used a certificate of participation to remodel Aurora Central High School previous to my time on the board. The city really hasn't had a good conversation around bonding. There hasn't been a whole lot of leadership from council to have a conversation around that. So I think those kind of opportunities come into play. So I certainly support the idea of a training facility, but maybe we can do it within the bounds of that $30 million, leverage that with some additional bonding or some other projects, and see if we can't accomplish more with that amount of money.
PK?
Thank you, Dave. My understanding is we have money in city accounts, and my take is we are not supposed to spend it by the end of weekend. If money is there, we should have projects. And if we have projects, they should be prioritized. And the first on top of the priority project should be implemented. We can use this money to make some projects, to design some project. Public safety is the issue. Police, firefighter, equipment training is issue. Closed down library is the issue. Neighborhood help is the issue. Flood victim is the issue. We can make priorities what is needed most and what is needed right now. Instead of making plan here and there, we should have list of plans, and money should be spending according to the priorities. Thank you.
I just want to make sure I'm clear, PK, that you're saying that you would want to revisit this issue as far as you do not want to spend the entire amount of money on a police fire and training center?
I am saying that this money should be used as surplus money. And with the surplus money, city emergencies are on the top priority. Flood was there, road was broken. Police and firefighters, they were fighting with their old equipments. I want to make sure that the libraries are open if we have some money. Police and fire have updated equipment. And if there is still some money, we should make some capital project list of the to-do lists.
Okay. And Matt, just a very short time ago, the city couldn't convince voters to vote for something that wouldn't even cost them a tax increase to provide a lot of capital improvements. What could you do differently than what the current city council has done to provide a different kind of leadership or talk someone into actually having to pay for more taxes for new projects?
Dave, as you know, in my time on the APS board, we've had a number of bond and mill levy issues, and it's boots on the ground. The school board was out at 145 different homeowners groups, PTOs, community groups. Superintendent John Berry was out leading the way. So I think if you compare what happened with the tax question last time for the city, it was a lack of leadership and a lack of political will by the city council.
Okay.
The next question goes to all the candidates. In an era of continued budget constraints, the priorities of strong police and fire protection are clear, but by themselves, they do not make a strong community. Where do you put amenities, such as parks, recreation centers, and libraries, on your budget priority list, and how would you fund them? Barb Cleland will answer first.
Police and fire, I think when you look at the city charter, they are at the top of the list, public safety. But however, our city is there to take care of parks and recreation. I think we just recently had the question regarding priorities. There is an opportunity, we will have to see going through the budget process, that possibly we could do some bonding, or as was stated, certificates of participation for a recreation center. These are some of the things that we will have to start looking at to see, because we're not going to take the capital money that we have for this year. We will do one-time projects, because we can't necessarily know that that money will be there next year. So I think we have an opportunity to bond some projects this year, and I think Parks and Recreation should be higher on the priority list.
Matt Cook?
I agree. There's only, as I stated earlier, there's only one pot of tax money. It's not like we can go out and print more like the federal government does. So we have to have priorities. In Aurora Public Schools, we started with the community. We had bond oversight committees who looked at the entire district and said, these are the projects where we think you should allocate that money. I would encourage a similar process here with the city, because I think those are the folks that are ultimately going to have to vote for it. So it's a balance. You certainly can't have an adequate police and fire force without training, but at the same time, you're not going to attract businesses, certainly corporate businesses, without the amenities like cultural arts, rec centers, libraries. It's just not possible. When they come to look at a city, they look at the entire package, and we have to be able to offer those amenities in a reasonable way, in an equitable way, so that all citizens, regardless of their zip code, have benefit.
P.K. Kaiser?
Thank you. My priority is the people of Aurora. I will ask them what their priorities are. And in my opinion, being a student of economics, there are two kinds of priorities: short-term priorities and long-term priorities. Police, firefighter equipment is short-term and immediate priority. For the long term, for the educating this city and its future generations, we need libraries, we need cultural centers. Those are our long-term goals. And the end of the day, an educated city is a better city. So I will do in the short term, I will focus on police and firefighter equipment and training. And in the long run, I will focus on the libraries, culture centers, and rec centers.
Angela Lawson?
I definitely think that police and fire should be the #1 priority. However, I think Aurora is very limited in their recreational and cultural activities. That's why a lot of people go to Denver, because there's not a lot here. And I think that what we need to do is we do need to make that a priority, because it is attractiveness to the city, and it will bring more people to want to stay in the city and do things instead of venturing out to our neighboring cities. So I do think it's very important. We do need the recreational centers. I know in Southeast Aurora, where I live, I don't really know where a recreational center is for me to go. So I actually have to, I find ones, but it's out of where I live. So I do think that it should be a priority, but I do think it has to be budgeted. I do think we have to make fiscal sense. What makes sense, I know my work on the CABC, we've looked at parks, we tried to see if we can do some consolidations, make some specialty parks, and I think, and recreational parks. So I think you have to look at it from all sides, look at it from a fiscal perspective, as well as what's going to be better for the city.
Brad Pierce?
Thank you. I do think public safety is the #1 priority of any city, and so I think transportation comes in there second, because if you can't move people or goods around and across your city, your economy is just going to tank. So outside of public safety and transportation, I do think our quality of life, such as cultural arts and rec centers, need to be funded. We only have one full-service rec center in the city, and that's the Beck Rec Center, and for a city of our size, that's totally not adequate. So I think we need to figure out a way to finance some of these needs that we have. And it's not just cultural and rec centers. It's a whole gamut of things that the financing mechanism is going to have to be decided upon. The other thing we can do is work with private business to help us either privatize a rec center or have them name it, naming rights to a rec center, for example, to help pay for it. Thank you.
Maya Wheeler?
This is a touching subject for me. It's hard. I agree that our police and our fire need a training center. I've gone on police ride-alongs and with the fire department. Those are hardworking folks. And I do believe they need a training facility. I think there's a way that we can make this work for both. We also need recreation centers. Like my opponents have said, we haven't had a new recreation center since the 1980s. But I think there's a way that we need to find the money to make this happen for both of them. It's a shame that the city of Aurora, the size that we are, that we don't have money to give our fire and police what they need to continue to be good police force and firefighters. And at the same time, our quality of life is suffering because our children and our families don't have the rec centers that we need. I think as a city council and a city, we need to find a way to make this work for everyone. Right now, we're paying the city of Denver money for our people to go be trained. I mean, that would be an opportunity for us to make money if other counties came to our city to get training as well.
Thank you. The next questions will come from the Aurora Sentinel, starting with Aaron Cole.
Thanks. I have a question for Maya and Angela. As potential newcomers to the City Council, you might be faced with the renewal of the photo red light contract. And considering that it's pretty unpopular sometimes, especially with me sometimes when I get a letter in the mail, what's your take on the photo red light? Would you renew the contract? And if not, what would you do? Maya, do you want to go ahead and start?
I support red light cameras. I know that might not be a popular thing, but to me, safety is the most important thing. And research has shown that we might not have less accidents, but we have the severity of those accidents are less. So I care about the residents and their safety, and I'd rather put their safety first. So I do support red lights cameras.
Okay, Angela?
I think the red light cameras are counterproductive, and they do not achieve really what the goal is. When you go through these, the question I have is when you're going through these red light cameras, and who is really making the judgment call? The camera is just the camera taking the picture, but who's actually making the call of who's actually getting the ticket? If safety is the first for the city, because I hear a lot of people saying that the charge for the ticket is very expensive to them, then why don't they have or make a program for red light runners to maybe volunteer in the city to pay off the ticket? Because those could be a lot of costs for people, $75 plus an additional $40 if you don't respond. So I would not vote to extend the contract. What I would like to see is maybe implementation of more speed cameras in some of the busiest school zones.
Okay. I do have a follow-up, considering that we have differing opinions here on the photo red light cameras. One thing that was discussed during the last capital improvement project that voters denied was bike lanes, and bike lanes throughout the city. And you may have noticed that Aurora doesn't have a whole lot in some places, and it's not the most bicycle friendly. Would you consider maybe opening up some money to improve bicycle access in Aurora and other forms of transportation that aren't public transportation or traffic or automobile? Maya, do you want to go ahead and start?
So you're asking me, do I support bicycle lanes? And
Yeah, would you consider freeing up some revenue to add some bicycle lanes or some bus lanes within the city?
yeah, I would need to take everything into consideration, but I think that would be a good idea. I mean, it helps the quality of life. Our children are obese in the United States of America. I mean, recently in the Sentinel, though, it did say Aurora was one of the healthiest places to live. But so I would support that. I think that's a good idea.
Okay. Angela?
I would support that. When I look at in the city of Denver and I see all the bikers and I see people renting bikes, I see a really good, I see that all the time just working in Denver. So I would think that I would be very supportive of that. I also think we do need bus lanes. I wish we had HOV lanes like the north side of, for carpoolers as well. So I think that in terms of the bike lanes, in terms of additional transportation for buses, maybe even creating some HOV lanes, because I drive every day, and that's a choice of mine, that it would be essential that if on this side of town that we have those particular transportational options.
And now a question from Aurora Sentinel editor Dave Perry.
Thanks. This question is for Brad and Matt. The Mayor Hogan has recently started a conversation among City Council regarding police authority and the police department, whether or not there should be an oversight entity that would decide whether or not, when controversial cases or instances happen in the police department, if the police chief and the police department have made the right decision as far as disposition of a case or how an officer behaved. And I wonder how each of you felt about that, if you think Mayor Hogan's first pitch about a police monitor is a good idea, or if it's even needed. Brad, do you want to start with that?
Yeah, thanks, Dave. The issue has come through the Public Safety and Courts Policy Committee of City Council, which I'm not on. So what I know about it is kind of what I read in the Sentinel. So my questions to myself are, how would this exactly work? Because if you have let's say, internal investigation of a police officer and that is kind of kept under wraps until the results are provided publicly, would this monitor be privy to the information that the internal investigation is going to develop? I don't want to have the monitor redo or do duplicate work from the Civil Service Commission. I wonder how many complaints do we get that would require a full-time monitor or a board to review cases. It's just, until I hear the issues coming forward to the whole City Council, those are kind of the issues that I have in my mind.
Okay. Matt?
I'm not opposed to it on the face, just because I don't know enough about it. I'm not privileged to the internal conversations. However, I would say, no offense to the Sentinel, I wouldn't want to read about that the first time in the pages of the Aurora Sentinel. And I think that's kind of how that came about, at least to some of the folks I've spoken to. So I certainly would begin with the community, have a discussion. I think you have to work with the folks who are on the street in the uniforms, have that conversation. Denver's had a number of issues with the police monitor and some of the growing pains around that. So I'd want to have some more in-depth conversations before I could really say yay or nay. But I think we have a fairly equitable system currently with the chief and the Civil Service Commission, and it seems to be working. So before we add another layer, I'd want to have some conversations and some more research.
Okay, you used Denver as an instance there, saying that with the police monitor, there's been some problems. There's been a lot of problems in Denver without a police monitor involving the ultimate authority, the police department there. And there's been some controversy here in Aurora, too, as the disposition of some of the officers on both sides of that. You think that there just simply is no need for another look at what goes on there, or that the City Council, through a designee, should be the ultimate authority and not the police department?
Yeah. No, clearly what I was saying was not that I'm opposed or for it. I would want to have some more conversation around it. I think we need to have a community conversation, because you're right. There are issues in Aurora with community and the police. I mean, it's a tough business. Anytime you have folks involved in very emotional issues and the police officer shows up, a lot of times it's not clear what happens or transpires. So I'm not opposed to it. I'm not supporting it. But I clearly think if we want to go down that road, we have to have some additional conversation. We have to bring folks both from the police, the community, and the city and see what it might look like.
Brad, do you want to add something to that?
Just want to learn more information about it. I do read the minutes of the Public Safety Committee meetings, and so whatever form it takes when it comes out of committee and goes to the full council, I'm just interested in hearing the pros and the cons. I just don't have enough information right now to make a decision.
Okay, thanks.
The next question comes from Aaron Cole.
Thanks. I have a question for PK and Barb here. And I want to ask about tap fees, because it seems to me that the city is kind of in a rock and a hard place regarding the current revised, or the current tap fee structure and the proposed revised tap fee structure, it seems like one incentivizes residential development, whereas the other one maybe doesn't, and then the other one penalizes kind of heavily commercial users of the water. And I just kind of want to hear your thoughts on what the city should do, and if the city needs to revise its tap fee structure to incentivize more residential development within the city. Barb, do you want to go ahead and start?
Sure, thank you. With the new tap fees that have come before City Council, basically we looked at the users of water. Residential are not big users of water, and yet their tap fees were one of the higher ones in the metro area. When you start getting into commercial, they use more water, they're a bigger tap. We have a new person that works for our utility department and went in and started looking at our taxing structure. And what has been presented to council is lower users of water will have the tap fees that will be less expensive. Your higher water users are going to pay a lot more, of which I feel they should. Water is like liquid gold in the city of Aurora, and I think in the state of Colorado. And I think those that use a lot of water should have to pay a higher tap fee.
PK?
Thank you, Aaron. To me, it's looking like we are pleasing the developers in the city of Aurora, because customers are the homeowners. They are not buying or installing the tap or the water by themselves. It is built in when you buy a house. And my fear is this reduction in a tap fee will not translate in reduce of new price house. And secondly, these tap fees was designed to pay off the Prairie Water, and the final bill is due in 2020. So we are not sure how they are coming up with this payment of bills, and we are expecting, as local paper says, we are expecting shortfall in revenue in coming years. So we want to make sure we are not pleasing one developer, and we are letting people pay for higher water rate in the whole metro area. The good thing to do is make the water rate adjustment incompatible with other cities surrounding us. Okay. Thank you.
Barb, I do have a follow-up question. You said that we have been lucky with Prairie Waters, and that we do have water, and that commercial users, if they are water bottling facilities, do create jobs for people here in Aurora. Don't you think the city should leverage what resources we have to entice commercial development?
Absolutely. But when we are talking high water users, you mentioned Niagara, I think you did, as they are a very high water user. And I think there's opportunities for economic development for other companies to come that are not as high users as what somebody like Niagara is. And those are issues that when you start, we were talking incentives, maybe there is something that we could do. But again, it is looking at on an individual basis.
Okay. PK?
Talking about Niagara Bottling Company, it is looking like a non-transparent deal where people have nothing to say. City Council just sold People's Water to one company on their favorite rates. Thank you.
Thanks.
The next question goes to all the candidates. One of the biggest issues at the national and city level is job creation. Since the vast majority of new jobs are created by small and medium-sized businesses, what specifically would you do as a council member to assist in the fostering of Aurora's small and medium-sized businesses? We'll begin our answers with Maya Wheeler.
I think as a city, we need to work with small businesses. When I've been out in the community and talking to different small business owners, a lot of them don't know about the available resources that are available to help them make their businesses be more sustainable. I think we need to work more with the Community College of Aurora and have more classes that help small business owners, and even have interns maybe from the college that go work with those small businesses. We do need to support them, and I think we need to encourage small businesses to buy from one another. One of the things I had wanted to do before was incentivize businesses or the city to buy from our small businesses and larger businesses, so like a Buy Aurora plan. And then also at the same time, encourage businesses to buy from one another so they can be more viable. But I do think we need to work with our small businesses and be more business friendly and relax some of the regulations that we have. Because I've heard a lot of times that it's hard for businesses to come to the city of Aurora because of the regulations.
Brad Pierce.
Thank you. We do have the Small Business Development Center located right here in this building that offers a myriad of programs, classes, and education about just for small business. We also created the New Jobs Reward Program, which is specifically designed for small business. So if you are going to create up to 20 jobs above a certain salary, the city will help you with either breaks on the occupational privilege tax, business personal property tax, and even some funds to help educate your workforce. And so it doesn't apply to the big businesses. It just applies to small businesses specifically because we recognize that that's where all the jobs are created. In my paralegal job where I work, the business there has grown by more than double in the last 13 years that I've worked there, and that's a perfect example of how a small business expands. And so I think between the Small Business Development Center and the New Jobs Reward Program, we're addressing small business expansion.
Angela Lawson.
I think that Brad is right. I think that we do need to actually collaborate with those particular agencies as well. But I also think that there should be some kind of marketing as well in terms of bringing businesses here and actually working with a lot of small businesses. I know a lot of people who have tried to establish businesses here in Aurora, and they say it's very difficult, so they go to Denver. And I think that we have to be more, we have to maybe lessen some of the burdensome, especially on, I know that we had an issue with the tenant-based finishes in particular. That a lot of people, there's a lot of wait time, and I know that we've gotten some, with the CABC, they've given us some research, which I guess council will be getting as well, in terms of the different cities and how the timeframes for rent, for tenant finishes. So I think that we also have to do that as well as market the city and just make sure that we're more business friendly and make sure that a small business can be sustainable here, and that will create the jobs as well.
P.K. Kaiser.
Thank you. In any given economy, the city, the political leadership can attract business when they provide certain criteria. When they provide incentive for new setup and development of the existing business and how they retain them. They should provide a perfect infrastructure for the businesses. They should also provide best processing in the setting up the business. Right now, being a small business owner, I know there is a lot of lengthy process just being a business owner in the city. Also, we need to diversify our business industry. We are just focusing on the service industry. There is need to diversify it. There is need to put the industrial zone, tax-free zone, tax holiday zone, manufacturing zone, transportation business. There should be the variety. There should be the whole lot of business together where the business support each other business as well and also generate jobs are product of any business. If business is going well, jobs are there. Thank you.
Matt Cook.
Thank you. I think the City of Aurora has a very good staff. They work very hard. However, they've been asked to do a lot more with fewer resources, as we all have during this economic downturn. So I think a couple of things come to mind. I think what City Manager Noe is doing with his 4 core, trying to look at efficiencies and things that we can do better. I think that's one. I think the One Aurora Compact is another great example of collaboration between the city and the schools. We have to be able to produce students who are ready for post-secondary workforce readiness, that we're creating people who can come out with the skills and the knowledge that employers want. And then the second thing, or third thing maybe, I might like to talk about would be perhaps some kind of a system of microloans to get some of these businesses started. So maybe, in the under $25,000 category, something like that, where you could get a business up and running, a lot maybe home-based business, some of those ideas. I really think we just need to look at it differently. The world is changing. We're not going to always be able to go out and get the Fortune 200 companies because we know that the small and medium businesses create the majority of jobs in this country.
Barb Cleland.
Thank you. One of the things that the City Council did is, in the last few years, did listen to the small businesses And as was said, we created the business incentive program in the city of Aurora. I believe it's for 20 employees or less, that we do give incentives, because the city of Aurora, most of what we do is small businesses. We have a few large industries, the school district, Fitzsimmons, Buckley, but probably 90% of our tax base comes from small businesses. So I think what we are continuing to do is to work with small businesses in trying to find ways to help them make it easier to locate in the city of Aurora. We are especially working with Original Aurora and trying to do some economic development in Original Aurora and trying to bring smaller businesses onto the Colfax corridor.
Thank you. The next questions will come from the Aurora Sentinel, starting with Dave Perry.
I'd like to follow up on this with Angela and PK. It sounds like, you both are saying the same thing, that there's an issue here that the city is seen as unfriendly, and it's difficult for us, especially very small businesses, just to try and get open. We've heard some of the same things over the years, usually having to do with fire regulations or with landscaping regulations and sign regulations. And I'm wondering if you're saying that the city needs to back off of those and not require landscaping or not require so many fire safety regulations that it does, or some of the other ones, so that they can make it easier on these small businesses to comply. Angela, do you want to start?
I think those things are important. I'm not particularly saying that we need to back off on the regulation. I'm just saying that there needs to be a little bit more business-friendly in terms of the landscape. I mean, those things are important, because if you're a consumer, you don't want just weeds growing in front of a business. I mean, you want the business to look attractive. So I'm not saying that, but what I am saying is that in terms of some of people getting a business set up, in terms of getting a permit, in terms of them getting the tenant finishes done, it's taking a lot of time for them to do that. So fire inspections, things like that, I think they're really important. You have to have that. But I think that you have to kind of maybe lay off on some of the other regulation in terms of letting them get the finishes done, faster time. Is that possible? I think it is. Maybe some of the permit issues. I mean, we need to work with people, work with the different branches to see how we can make that a little bit more streamlined.
I can tell you the comments that I hear and the complaints I hear aren't that the city staff isn't friendly. It's just that it's expensive to comply with the rules and regulations, to provide berms, or parking has to be so much paint, and it's just a lot of regulations. And the only answer, it seems to me, would be to back off those. So would you consider backing off some of these regulations? Because there are other communities that aren't as tightly regulated as Aurora is right now.
I would probably have to look at it. I mean, I just don't want to just say, I mean, I have to probably look at a study, kind of look at the assessments, kind of see, maybe do a comparison with other cities, kind of like what we did with the tenant finishes at the CABC, the information that we provided with that. I would probably like to see that to determine what is really the cause. I mean, I think that that's important before even really making any kind of decision on that.
Okay, PK?
I'm not compromising on any safety issue and any safety-related regulation. What I'm saying, the processing method should be improved. If we have to go in 5 windows to get one thing done, why not those things should be done in one window? And one person can do everything for me in a single place in this building. And when we are talking about the lengthy and expensive compliance, those processes should be made easy. I have a friend who is running a small restaurant, one-man shop, and he has to pay every month to city to open his door. On the other side of the business, other side of the city, we are paying $1 million before even they start the business. There should be harmony between the city regulations, among the city regulations. It should be good for one, it should be good for all.
Okay, thanks.
Thank you.
Do you have a follow-up? Okay.
Good.
The next question will come from Aaron Cole.
I have a question for Barb and Matt. Switching gears here a little bit, specifically about RTD, light rail, and parking. The trains come in, and we can all kind of see that what might happen here. Does the city have a responsibility to help alleviate some of the parking concerns that inevitably probably will happen if just looking at 9 Mile, for instance? These places are going to be packed. Does the city have a responsibility to provide parking, or does it have a responsibility to get somebody else to pay for it, or what would you do? Barb, do you want to start?
Sure, thank you. One of the things that we did this last year is went to the state legislature to ask them if parking, you could pay for parking. So it will be starting at 9 Mile and various of the parking garages. There will be paid parking at the various RTD centers. Our hope is, because you will be paying for parking, that those could help finance parking garages at the various RTD stops, because we know, as we have seen with 9 Mile, people use RTD and they're going to be using the trains. One of the problems that I'm having right now with, or that I feel personally with RTD, is that we do need some structured parking over more in North Aurora, Original Aurora. So do we have an obligation? I think the paid for parking will go a long way in helping to take care of some of the parking structures that are needed. They can be public-private partnerships.
Matt?
I believe light rail is going to be a huge boon to the city economically, but at the same time, we've got to make sure that this project is something we can live with for the next 50 or 60 years. So parking is one issue, clearly, that we need to have some kind of a plan for. And I don't know if that's a combination of the city, private, RTD, to develop that. But other things that folks don't know are coming with light rail. You know, we're going to have crossing guards. We're going to have the bars coming down on some of these routes. And so we have to have a better conversation in general about what comes along with light rail, because pay for parking is one example, but we know from a lot of experience that just moves it into neighborhoods, and that brings noise and traffic and other associated things. So I think there has to be a plan. I think it has to be clearly transparent to what folks are doing, and I think we need to encourage RTD to live up to the taxes and honor what that project is, and if it needs to be having some parking, then we have to have that and demand it.
Okay. I do have a follow-up question regarding pay for parking. Parking structures themselves are just astronomically expensive, and you're talking about tens of thousands of dollars per space, and that cost goes up even more if you talk about underground parking. So pay for parking would be a really long-term prospect if you're asking the folks to help finance their own garage. Is that a viable solution? And if it is, how would the city approach doing that?
First of all, the city would not do it. This is through RTD. RTD would be collecting the money for the parking, because the parking structures will be RTDs. There will be an opportunity that the city could help in possibly land, and again, doing some kind of a partnership with them. But this is RTD's responsibility, not the city of Aurora. We will help in any way we can, and there may be some dollars that we could put into some of the structures, again, with some of the land costs, but it's up to them.
Matt, how do you I'm sorry to interject, but how do you offer a pay-for-parking structure without dissuading people from taking public transportation to begin with, because you're already paying, you know, $4 or $5 round trip, when public transportation should be maybe a little bit cheaper for people to afford on a daily basis?
No, I agree 100%, and that's the piece I think that has not been explained very well, either by RTD. You know, you look at fast tracks along that whole corridor. You know, go to Osage, 10th and Osage, you know, and there's no parking there, and people are parking in the neighborhoods and in the streets, and so we need to have that plan. Maybe it's a system of shuttles, maybe it's a system of overland parking lots where we do have some land available, you know, but I don't have the answer, but I think we clearly need to have that conversation with our RTD commissioners, the city council, and the folks who ride light rail.
Thanks.
The final question comes from Aurora Sentinel editor Dave Perry.
Thanks. This question is for Brad and Maya. For, I'd say, probably the last 20 years, the city has focused a lot on protecting the rights of residents and neighborhoods to make sure that the city's everything's safe and that their neighbors don't intrude on their own privacy and their own rights. But I wonder if maybe it's gone too far, and one of the things this city does is it does not allow for backyard chickens and some of the things that you get to do in Denver. And even though it's not the biggest deal, it seems to be more and more popular that some of the communities around the metro area are backing off some of those regulations, loosening up and letting people have pushed food trucks in neighborhoods and backyard chickens and even pygmy goats. And I wonder how each of you feel about that. If you want to start, Maya?
I love all animals, and from attending the last city council meeting, it's my understanding they're going to have a committee to look at that further. But I support having backyard chickens. I read an article, I think in the Aurora Sentinel, that talked about having a chicken in your backyard is just like owning a cat or a dog. You got to take them to the vet. You got to make sure you take care of them. If you don't take care of your dog or pick up his feces, your backyard's going to smell. So I think we just got to take a look at what Denver's doing and what Boulder's doing and learn from that. But I think it's a good idea.
Okay.
Thanks, Dave. City Council looked at this a few years ago, and it didn't move forward. And so what my issues in my mind are, okay, are you going to have to notify a certain number of neighbors around your house if you want to have a chicken? Are you going to have the city inspect it, inspect your chicken coop to make sure it's up to par? And I'm sure there's standards on what kind of chicken coop you have to have. And it would only, if we had them, it would only be hens. It would not be any roosters. So that issue would not be prevalent with a rooster there. The idea that I have is, why don't we have kind of a community, same idea as community gardens. You have a community chicken coop. So you find an area in the city where you keep your chicken, you get your eggs, you have your coop there, and so you have a kind of a centralized area for many chickens from many, many different residents and have it there. So then you don't have to worry about the noise, the odor, the issue of inspection as much. So I like to think about, okay, how are we going to do community chicken gardens, so to speak?
Okay. What about going a little farther with that, maybe street peddlers back into the neighborhoods? They were very popular up in the northwest part of the city several years ago, and the city outruled them, and a lot of them moved into Denver. Brad, how do you feel about that?
Are you talking about street peddlers for like eggs? Or just
no, more like somebody selling corn, hot corn, or ice cream bars and stuff out of a street cart.
You know, I take your word for it, it was banned by the city council way before I was on city council, but, you know, if there's maybe an ice cream truck type situation can drive through and, you know, sell ice cream, or, you know, we do allow food carts. You have to have a permit to have a food cart if you want to sell hot dogs or soft drinks at a food cart. I mean, that's okay, but...
These are the guys that walk up and down the streets with bells ringing, and they sell helado out of the carts and stuff.
I don't think that's something we want to have in Aurora.
Okay. Maya?
I think it would be a potential safety concern. I'm fine with having people selling things as long as they have the proper permits and we make sure that the food that they're serving is meeting proper temperatures and it's going to be not make anyone sick. I agree with Brad. I'm not sure if that's a good thing for Aurora unless there's proper measures put into place to make sure that we keep our residents safe and that everyone is protected.
Great, thanks.
That concludes the question and answer portion of the forum. And now candidates have the opportunity to make a 1-minute closing statement, starting with Barb Cleland.
Thank you. Again, my name is Barb Cleland, and I want to thank the groups that have come tonight and have hosted this town hall meeting. I think the voters are presented with a very clear choice in this election. I have attended neighborhood meetings in every one of the corners of the city of Aurora. I believe one of the strong points of this city is the neighborhood involvement. It is the citizens that make this city what it is and make this city work. It is not the job of city council to tell you what to think. It is my job to listen to your ideas. I am very proud of my service to the city of Aurora, and I am inspired by the citizens who I have met over the last 4 years. So I ask for your vote, and I ask for your continued support. Thank you very much.
Matt Cook?
Thank you. This election is important for a lot of reasons, but I believe it really comes down to one, and that's leadership. Who do you trust to lead this city into the next century? I believe I have the ability to bring that leadership to City Council. Does that mean I'll always have the answers? Clearly not, but I will work with you to find solutions. I have a proven track record to that effect, and I will listen to all voices and then try to do what's best for Aurora. Aurora is on the brink of greatness. Small actions and small ideas are not going to take us where we need to go. We need leaders who can look at ideas differently and come up with solutions that fit what our citizens and our folks who live here require. When I started on the Board of Education in Aurora Public Schools 8 years ago, it would have been really easy to focus on what was wrong. But instead, I saw the greatness that was inherent in our community, our staff, and our students. I'll bring that same sense to this Aurora City Council. I'd like to take a moment to thank my family, Lori, Aaron, Braden. Thank you so much for your time and support during this campaign. I love you very much. I also would like to thank all the dedicated volunteers who've helped me bring my message forward. Over the last couple months, I've knocked on 1,700 doors, talking to voters, but more importantly, listening to voters. They're overwhelmingly excited about Aurora. They see the greatness that's inherent here, and so do I. My name is Matt Cook, and I would respectfully ask for your vote.
P.K. Kaiser?
Thank you for this opportunity to speak to the people of Aurora. I also thank my fellow candidates for sharing their views. The decision you make will shape the future of Aurora for years to come. For someone to speak for you, it's time for P.K. Kaiser. For your concerns and issues and wishes to be honored, it's time for P.K. Kaiser. For integrity, openness, and accountability in the Aurora City Council, it's time for P.K. Kaiser. For fresh ideas and progressive representation in Aurora City Council, it is time for P.K. Kaiser. I would appreciate your vote. It's time. Thank you.
Angela Lawson?
First, I want to thank my mom and dad for coming here to support me. They've been my greatest supporters. One of the principles that I have always, and I always look at leadership, is I believe that engagement is one of the most important things that an elected official can do. And when I envision engagement, I think about making a personal connection with an individual, a community, and a city. And this shouldn't be just a job description, just be something that you should really have if you're running for any kind of elected office. If elected, I would do the best to be fair, honest, to listen to all of my constituents, because I think it's very important to do so, and to uphold any kind of community interest that they may have. I am a new person on the block, but you have 6 different candidates here. 2 are experienced candidates. And you have, when I say on my record that Aurora should be the forefront of Colorado, I really do believe that. New vision, new innovation, new thoughts, new thinking. And that's what I would bring to the table if I was elected for City Council. Thank you very much.
Brad Pierce?
Thank you. You've heard from all the candidates now. The voters do have a clear choice on who they select when the ballots come out and you sit at your kitchen table and mark your ballot. I believe I'm the most qualified and most experienced candidate. I have a lifelong commitment to Aurora. I want to continue our sound water management with safe, reliable, and affordable water supply. I want to keep crime rates low and keep neighborhoods safe and secure. I also want to ensure that we keep our excellent transportation system. Many of the issues that we've talked about tonight require cooperation, not only amongst city council members, but working with on the state level at the Colorado Municipal League and on the federal level with the National League of Cities, which I've done on my whole 10 years I've been on city council. I ask for your vote in November or when you get your ballots in the mail. Again, my website is bradforcouncil.com, B-R-A-D-F-O-R, council.com. And thank you very much.
Maya Wheeler?
Thank you to the forum organizers and to the listening audience for tuning in. My name is Maya Wheeler, and I'm a candidate for Aurora City Council. I've said it from the beginning that constituent services will be my #1 priority. What I didn't say, and I'm saying it now, is that Aurora's core values of integrity, respect, professionalism, and customer service are also my core values as well. I believe that Aurora and its citizens want and need a new city council person with a new vision and a problem-solving attitude. I am that person, and I want to serve you on Aurora City Council. My background and my experience will allow me to hit the ground running, and with your vote and support, we can make it happen. Don't just consider this a vote for Maya Wheeler, but a vote for Aurora's future. I will work hard for the city of Aurora and its citizens every day. Vote for Maya Wheeler. I'm last on the ballot, but #1 in the community. Vote the bottom line on November 5th and elect Maya Wheeler to Aurora City Council at large. Thank you.
We'd like to thank the candidates and the Aurora Sentinel for participating in tonight's forum, and a special thanks to Aurora Channel 8 for their election coverage. We'd like to remind viewers that all 4 forums will be repeated here on Channel 8 throughout October and up until Election Day. Schedules can be found in the Aurora Sentinel or online at auroragov.org/Aurora8. You can also view them online at your convenience at youtube.com/The Aurora Channel. We encourage all voters to know the candidates, know the issues, and exercise your right to be heard by casting your vote in this election. Thank you and good night.